During a school art show, a rich man tore up a little girl's drawing of her dead mother and threw a $100 bill at her crying father, laughing, "Buy some tape." What he didn't know was that the quiet, single dad he just humiliated could destroy his entire billion-dollar empire with one phone call before sunrise. Where are you watching this right now? And what time is it? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. The exhibition had been Millie's idea of the best day of her life. She had told Vaughn this 3 times on the drive over. She was 7 years old and had been working on the painting for 6 weeks. He knew because he had watched her, at the kitchen table after dinner, tongue between her teeth, adding a blade of grass, then a cloud that took 4 attempts to get right. The painting showed 2 figures on an open meadow. One small, one tall, with dark hair and a yellow dress. Holding hands, the light behind them the warm amber of a late afternoon that never quite ended. The award was announced at 4:30. First place. The teacher called Millie's name, and she looked up at Vaughn with an expression he knew he would carry the rest of his life. Pure, unguarded, the face of a child discovering the world can confirm what the heart already knows. He was still holding that moment when the boy reached out. Zane was 8, broad for his age, accustomed to getting his way. He snatched the painting from the display board. Millie turned, reached for it. He tore it in half, then into quarters, pieces falling across the polished floor while Millie stood frozen, mouth open, no sound out yet. Vaughn crossed the room in 4 steps, gathered Millie against his chest, and turned to the boy's father, who had watched everything from 3 feet away with arms folded and an expression of sculptured boredom. Trent Calloway wore his wealth the way certain buildings wear glass, reflective, impenetrable, designed to show you your own face rather than what lay behind it. 43, tanned in November, unmoved by what his son had just done. "I'd like an apology," Vaughn said. Quietly, steadily. Trent looked at him the way you look at a slow elevator. Then he reached into his breast pocket, produced a folded bill without looking at it, and let it fall. $100. Face up. Landing among the torn pieces of Millie's painting like something meant to settle a debt that had never existed. "Buy her more paper," he said, "or tape, and teach her not everything deserves first place, saves everyone the drama." He turned away. The room found other things to look at. Vaughn's fists closed until he felt his pulse in his palms. He said nothing. He crouched down, slowly, deliberately, and picked up every piece of his daughter's painting, while the $100 bill lay untouched beside his knee. Then he stood, took Millie's hand, and walked out into the cold. The drive home was quiet. Millie sat in the back seat with the torn pieces gathered in both hands, held against her chest the way you hold something injured. She did not cry in the car. She looked out at the passing streetlights and said nothing. And Vaughn drove and said nothing, and the silence between them was the kind that does not need filling. He spread a dish towel on the kitchen table when they got home. Gently, he took the pieces from her hands. She let him, her fingers opening slowly, and laid them out under the lamp. He found the clear tape in the second drawer. He sat down and began. It took a long time. The edges did not always meet cleanly. Some paint had cracked along the tiers, so the colors no longer lined up quite right. He worked without hurrying, fitting each fragment to its neighbor, pressing tape flat with his thumbnail. The meadow came back. The yellow dress came back. The 2 figures and their joined hands came back. But the face of the tall woman, Millie's mother, ran through with white lines now. cracks crossing her cheek and brow, the way a mirror looks after it has been broken and put back together and will never quite show you something whole again. Millie had been standing in the doorway watching. She came to the table and pressed her small fingers gently along the tape line that crossed her mother's face. "Mommy is hurt now," she said. Quietly. Not to Vaughn. To the painting, perhaps. Then, "Why did he do that to Mommy, Daddy? She never did anything to him." Vaughn set down the tape. He pulled her close and did not answer, because there was no answer a 7-year-old should have to carry. No explanation for that kind of cruelty that would not make the world feel colder than it needed to feel tonight. She cried eventually. Not loudly. Millie had never been a loud crier. Small sounds against his shoulder, and then the sound stopped and her breathing slowed and she was asleep. He carried her to bed. Blanket to her chin, one corner folded back the way she liked. He stood in the doorway watching her breathe. Then he went back to the kitchen. He did not turn on more lights. He sat in the amber glow of the single lamp, the repaired painting between his hands, and let the feeling he had been holding at arm's length come the rest of the way in. He had wanted to say things to Trent Calloway, things that would have felt right for one moment and cost him everything that mattered afterward. He had stayed quiet, picked up the pieces, walked out. But something in Vaughn was changing now, not from pain into resignation, but from pain into something colder and more precise. A decision forming the way ice forms, without sound, without announcement, until it is already everywhere. He did not want Trent Calloway to feel embarrassed. He wanted him to understand, the way you understand a wall you have walked into in the dark, exactly what he had done, and exactly what it was about to cost him. Vaughn reached across the table and opened his laptop. The laptop was old and took a moment to wake. Vaughn sat in the quiet kitchen while the screen brightened, hands flat on the table, the repaired painting beside him. Outside, the November wind moved through the street in long, slow pulls. He opened a browser, typed a name. Trent Calloway's digital footprint was considerable, the kind built by a man who enjoys being findable. Press releases, ribbon cuttings, a business magazine profile from the previous spring. Calloway Meridian, a mixed-use tower on the east waterfront, described as the centerpiece of his career. Financing close scheduled for the following morning. Anchor investment from a silent institutional partner. Name withheld pending formal documentation. Vaughn read it once, then closed it. He sat looking at his faint reflection in the dark window above the sink. A man past midnight in a dim kitchen. A child's drawings on the refrigerator. A yellow ceramic mug on the shelf he had never thrown away. Then he opened a different window. One requiring 3 separate authentication steps. A new access code every 60 seconds. The dashboard of Apex Holdings loaded quietly onto the screen. Very few people knew Vaughn had founded Apex. He had structured it that way deliberately. Layers of holding companies, a board that handled public communications, a legal architecture built for one purpose: to let him disappear from the name after his wife died, and he decided Millie needed a father home at 3:45, not a chairman working Saturdays. He had not disappeared from the decisions. He pulled up the portfolio, filtered by commitments scheduled for disbursement within 24 hours. Calloway Meridian appeared third, a 9-figure commitment, the kind that does not delay a project, the kind that determines whether it exists at all. He looked at it for a long moment. He thought about Millie's face when the painting tore, her fingers pressing the tape line across her mother's cheek. A man who had watched his child destroy something irreplaceable and responded by dropping $100 bill. Not from guilt, not even from carelessness, but from the settled certainty that money was a complete answer to anything. He picked up his phone. The call connected on the second ring. Hendricks, Chief of Capital Operations, 11 years, unflappable. Vaughn. The Callaway Meridian disbursement, Vaughn said. Level, unhurried, the voice of someone who has already decided and is now simply communicating. Pull it. Tonight. Full withdrawal, effective immediately. Formal notice at 6 in the morning. A brief pause. Understood, Hendricks said. It will be done. Vaughn ended the call. He set the phone beside the painting. Looked at the two figures on the patched meadow. Small one and tall one in the yellow dress, hands joined, white tape lines running through them both like rivers on an old map. He did not feel satisfaction. He did not feel anger anymore. Only the quiet of a man who has set something heavy down after carrying it a very long time, and is only now beginning to feel the absence of the weight. He turned off the lamp and went to bed. Tomorrow, Trent Callaway would discover that the world he had built on certainty had a foundation he had never once thought to check. The morning began well for Trent Callaway. That was the cruelest part. It began the way mornings begin for men who have never seriously considered that things might not go their way. Good coffee, a pressed shirt, the pleasant weight of certainty. He arrived at the Callaway Group offices at 8:15 and settled into the conference room where the disbursement call was scheduled for 9 o'clock. His assistant came in at 8:52. She placed a document in front of him without speaking. A formal withdrawal notice from Apex Holdings, effective as of 6 that morning. Full commitment, recalled in its entirety. One paragraph of legal language that meant, translated plainly, the money was gone, and it was not coming back. Trent moved quickly after that. Calls, lawyers, demands for explanation. He reached the Apex Holdings main line 3 times in 40 minutes and received, each time, a polite and immovable confirmation. The withdrawal was final, authorized at the highest level, not subject to reconsideration. The bank called at 10:20. Without the institutional anchor commitment, the construction loan recall provisions activated automatically. By 11 o'clock, Callaway Meridian had ceased to exist. He sat in the conference room with the tower model on the credenza and the withdrawal notice on the table, and for the first time in a long time, he felt the cold of a man who has discovered the ground he was standing on was only ever on loan. He demanded a meeting with the chairman of Apex Holdings. The response came within the hour. The chairman would see him. 2 o'clock. Trent arrived at the Apex offices at 1:58. Quiet lobby. Unremarkable exterior. The kind of restraint that costs more than marble. He was shown to the top floor, a corner office. The chair behind the desk had its back to the door. "I don't know what kind of operation you're running," Trent said, his voice carrying the strained authority of a man performing confidence he no longer felt. "Pulling a committed disbursement 12 hours before closing without cause is not how serious institutions conduct themselves." The chair turned. Trent stopped speaking. Vaughn sat behind the desk in a plain, dark jacket. The same quiet face. The same unhurried stillness that Trent had dismissed in a school gymnasium the day before, as the look of a man with nothing to protect. He had been wrong about that. "Sit down," Vaughn said. Trent's mind was making connections, rapid, unwilling, the school, the painting, the $100 bill on the gymnasium floor. He sat. Vaughn looked at him without hurrying. When he spoke, his voice was level. No heat, no performance. The voice of a man who does not need volume because he has already decided how this ends. Yesterday you decided that a child's pain had a price, he said. You reached into your pocket and named it. $100. A pause. Today I want you to understand something that no one has ever had the means to show you. There are things in this world that money cannot reach, cannot fix, cannot replace. He held Trent's gaze. And there are people whose value you will never be able to read from the outside. The city moved silently in the windows behind him. The disbursement will not be reinstated, Vaughn said. I have one question. When your son tore that painting, did you feel anything? Trent opened his mouth, closed it. The silence answered for him. Vaughn nodded, not in satisfaction, in something closer to sorrow. The particular sorrow of a man who has confirmed what he already suspected and finds no pleasure in being right. You can go, he said. Vaughn came home with a small paper bag and set it on the kitchen table without announcement. Millie was at the counter doing homework, pencil in hand, tongue between teeth, wrestling with long division and losing on points. She looked at the bag, then at him. What is that? Open it. She came to the table and reached inside, produced a small rectangular box, a watercolor set, 24 colors in 2 rows, and a brush whose tip came to a perfect point. She turned it over carefully, studying it before committing to a reaction. Then she looked up at him. For me? For you, he said. For whenever you're ready. She set the box down and looked at it. Through the doorway, the patched painting was visible on the hallway dresser. The 2 figures on the meadow, tape lines running through them, white cracks across her mother's face that no amount of care had made disappear. Millie looked at the painting, then at the watercolors. I want to paint her again, she said quietly. But I want to add you this time. Vaughn sat down across from her. Then paint her again, he said. She opened the box with the reverence of someone handling something that matters, chose a brush, filled a glass at the sink, carefully, not too full, spread a fresh sheet of paper on the table, and sat with the brush resting against her lip, looking at the blank page. Then she began. Vaughn watched without helping, without suggesting, a cup of tea going cold in his hands. His daughter rebuilt the same meadow, same amber light, same open sky, but larger now. 3 figures this time. A small one at the center, a tall one with dark hair and a yellow dress on the left. And on the right, added with careful strokes in a color she mixed twice to get right, a figure with its hand extended toward the small one. She worked in silence. When she finally set the brush down and leaned back, she tilted her head the way she always did when assessing her own work. It's better, she said, quietly, to herself. Vaughn looked at the painting. 3 figures, joined hands, light that held. He smoothed her hair from her forehead, a gesture so habitual he barely noticed it anymore, the way you stop noticing the things that have become part of how you love someone. You know something? He said. She looked up. We don't need to make others hurt to prove we were right. We just need to keep living well. He paused. Real fairness finds its own path. You don't have to carry it. It carries itself. Millie considered this with the seriousness she brought to most things. Then she dipped her brush and added one final detail. A small yellow flower at the feet of the tall figure in the dress. For her mother. Because some things, even torn, find their way back to whole.
Dear friend, the story you just followed is fiction, but shaped from something very real. The helpless fury of watching a child be hurt, and the question every parent carries in that moment. What kind of person do I want her to see me become? Vaughn is not real, but the choice he made is. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the nearest, loudest form of power. He went home, repaired what he could with tape and patience, held his daughter until she slept, and then, quietly, let the world correct itself through the means available to him. That is not weakness. That is the most difficult kind of strength there is. The way you treat someone who cannot fight back is the truest measure of your character. And the lessons you live in front of your children, not the ones you speak, but the ones you live, are the ones that last. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to QH Incredible Stories. Every week, another soul worth believing in. And leave a comment. What is the one lesson your parent taught you without ever saying a word? Thank you for always choosing to stand on the side of kindness.